colleagues, and honestly, superheroes across the social insurance community, including several founding members of the Academy. So tonight, as we gather, just to acknowledge, we do so at a moment that feels at once full of challenge and charged with a call to action. It's hard for many in the social insurance community not to feel some heaviness right now, watching critical programs and agencies face major challenges and, in some cases, retrenchment. Some people are wondering what the future of our social contract might hold. But as a spiritual mentor of mine likes to remind me, especially in times like this, living at this time in human history is either an affliction or it's an assignment. And it's up to us to accept the assignment. So it's in that spirit that we gather tonight in community to remember that none of us is in this alone, and rather, as social insurance itself is a living expression and reminder of, we're in this together as we work to shape the future that we want to see, including the future of that social contract. And the very moral imagination that birthed Social Security and the New Deal 90 years ago in the crucible of the Great Depression, the kind of courage that pushes people to dream bigger than what feels possible in this moment, that's precisely what we are hoping to honor and reconnect with tonight. And it's in that spirit that we at the Academy decided that this year, after many, many years of the Robert M. Ball Award, which we are excited to have as a big part of tonight's festivities, that it was time to build on the wonderful legacy that the Ball Award has brought us and kept alive for the Academy by launching a new award tonight honoring Frances Perkins, the architect. That's right, yes. For anyone who's going, who's Frances Perkins? And I know there are some of you out there because she does not get the due she deserves. She is the architect, as many of you do know, of much of the New Deal. And so we're really thrilled to launch that new award tonight to celebrate rising stars from the next generation of leaders who are already carrying forward Frances Perkins' bold, courageous vision into the future. So tonight is the Robert Ball Award and the launch of the Frances Perkins Next Generation Award. Now, before we go any further, I want to take a quick moment for gratitude because events like this and the work that we do at the Academy don't fall out of the sky. So first, to the extraordinary staff at the Academy, the heartbeat of the organization. Please stand so we can recognize you. Dora Mendelson, Indi Dutta-Gupta, Zane Snyder, Ariella Jailal, Tom Novotny, and our newest team member who literally started last week, so into the fire, Kenya Marie Mahone. Yes. I also want to say a huge thank you to our board of directors whose leadership and wisdom provide the Academy team and me personally invaluable support every single day. Board members, would you please stand as well and wave a hand? Great. Which is unfair to do to John Slatery, who's such a trooper. He came on like a device for his leg tonight, so sorry, John. To our generous funders and sponsors, as I continue with thank yous, thank you for making the Academy's work possible and for your steadfast partnership in especially critical times. None of what we do would be possible without your support, and special appreciation goes out to the Ford Foundation, J.P. Morgan Chase, the RRF Foundation for Aging, AARP, Next 50, the John A. Hartford Foundation, the Peterson Foundation, and the one and only Virginia Reno. And while I'm thanking sponsors, for anyone who's familiar with Academy events these days, you will not be surprised that I also need to thank tonight's wine sponsors. I also need to thank our friends at the Drink Tank, which is my wonderful husband, Phil Sellery, who is responsible for all the wine. And my final thank you goes to all of the Academy's incredible members, our partners, our allies, our friends, the people in this room, the people who aren't in this room, but who make up the Academy community. Thank you, thank you, thank you for everything that you do each and every day to get us closer to the society that we all share a vision of, one where economic security and care and dignity are assured across the lifespan. So a round of applause to all of the Academy members. So I'm just going to take a moment and say July marked my first year as CEO of the Academy. So we got 1 year under my belt here. I had big shoes to step into, including Bob Bowles. And I have to say, this particular event where we honor Bob Ball is particularly meaningful to me because I'm doing a lot of reflecting on the immense shoes that I step into in holding space for this community. And as I reflect back on this first year, I couldn't be prouder of what we, and this is a very big we, are building together. To bring the Academy into a new chapter and a challenging chapter for social insurance. So just a few things that we're reflecting on that we are so excited to be doing with so many people in this room. Deepening our impact, expanding our community. We've released critical polling in partnership with our friends at AARP and the National Institute for Retirement Security to ground the Social Security debate in people and what people want. We've launched exciting partnerships like our Disability Economic Policy Research Consortium. Shout out to our friends from the Roosevelt Institute who are here. We were thrilled to bring back the Academy's annual policy summit, which is such a meaningful time to bring together Academy members. We've expanded our summer intern programming, and a huge thank you to many of the people in this room who made that possible. We've elevated our members' voices through the new Social Security Speakers Bureau. Shout out to all the members of the Speakers Bureau who are in this room. It's been incredible lifting up your voices in the press in these critical times. And we've begun to build out a range of new infrastructure to support our Academy members in connecting, in collaborating, and learning from each other. And some of those are, yes, monthly happy hours, with another shout out to my husband for making that possible. But also things like affinity groups, like a monthly newsletter, and we're incredibly excited to be launching very soon a cross-generational mentorship program so that people can learn from each other across generations. That's just a few highlights of work that continues after we part tonight, because the need for this work and the leadership of all of our amazing members has never been greater. So thank you for your partnership, for being here tonight, and for showing up each and every day for the work of strengthening our social contract, which I believe is at its heart a sacred calling. And with that, it's my great, great honor to bring up to the stage someone who embodies that spirit of stewardship and service every single day, and that's the chair of the Academy's Board of Directors, Paul Vandewater, a longtime leader who has shaped Social Security, Medicare, and so much more over more than 5 decades. Paul.
Thank you, Rebecca. And it's my great privilege to serve as the chair of the Board of Directors of the Academy and to work with Rebecca in supporting all of these accomplishments that she's so valiantly described. As Rebecca said, this is the 90th anniversary of the Social Security Act. When it was enacted, Franklin Roosevelt knew, and its supporters knew, that it wasn't the end, but it was the beginning. And we know that over the years, other programs were added to Social Security, disability insurance, Medicare and Medicaid, CHIP, the Affordable Care Act. Bob Ball, who was one of the founders of the Academy, knew that these follow-on efforts to strengthen and protect our social insurance system would not just happen automatically, that it was necessary to provide a foundation of understanding both for the public and for policymakers. So in 1986, he brought a group of people, including many of the founding members who are here in the room today, to create the National Academy of Social Insurance. And as Rebecca said, the work of the Academy is even more, or at least as important today as it ever has been, as we face various potential threats to the program, such as the possible restrictions on disability insurance, which are being considered currently and which you all may have read about in the newspapers. So the Academy created in Bob's memory in 2004 the Bob Ball Award to recognize people with long achievements in the social insurance field. And this year, again, as Rebecca has said, we're adding, in cooperation with the Frances Perkins Center, this new award to recognize the future leaders in the social insurance world. So it's important not only to look backwards at what we've accomplished, but to be looking forward as to what needs to be accomplished in the future. So again, on behalf of the board and the membership of the Academy, I appreciate your attendance here this evening and look forward to the rest of our program.
Thank you so much, Paul. One of the great highlights of getting to be in this role is actually getting to spend as much time as I get to these days with Paul Vandewater. So one of the things that brought me the most joy the past year has actually been further building upon the Academy's role, not just as a convener, but a cultivator of the next generation. And many folks in the room are probably familiar with the Academy's intern program. Raise a hand if you've either been an Academy intern or you've hosted one. A lot of folks in this room, yes. Well, one of the highlights for me has been getting to know many of those interns who really represent the next generation, already leading the way on these issues. And so I am so incredibly excited to start this evening off by debuting that Frances Perkins Next Generation Award, which we are so excited, as Paul mentioned, to be launching with our friends at the Frances Perkins Center, which just became a national monument actually last year. Where's Amanda Hatch? Come on up, Amanda. Get over here. So Frances Perkins, I hope everybody, thank you, yes, Executive Director of the Frances Perkins Center, and one of my new favorite friends. So come on up, Amanda. So Frances Perkins, as I hope everybody knows, but if you don't, you have homework to do, was one of the chief architects of the New Deal. And in many ways, I know I'm not alone in considering her to be the spiritual mother of Social Security. And so 90 years later, the spirit, that spiritual foundation of the New Deal and Social Security really still lives on throughout so many of our social insurance programs. And so to help me debut this award, I'm really thrilled to have Amanda with us to share a few thoughts from the perspective of the Frances Perkins Center, who's keeping that legacy alive. And I want to say the idea for this award actually came out of something that was it was less like a work trip and more like a pilgrimage, I'm going to be honest, getting to go to the Frances Perkins homestead to celebrate Jim Roosevelt, who's not able to be with us tonight, but we've kept him busy this year for the 90th, so we've seen a lot of Jim. He's sad not to be here. And I had the wonderful good fortune of getting to meet Amanda, and we realized pretty quickly that we're not just both huge Frances Perkins fans, we're also really committed to the spiritual foundation of social insurance, and that's part of what we both really want to keep alive through our roles. So that was actually where the idea for creating this award came from. And Amanda, we're so grateful to you. Educate folks a little bit about Frances Perkins, would you?
All right. Thank you. I wrote my notes on a note card. So I don't know how much education I can do in approximately 90 seconds. So I would encourage you, if you aren't familiar with Frances Perkins and her legacy, to spend some time learning more about her. But I can tell you that the Frances Perkins Center also shares a similar mission of not only wanting to tell Frances Perkins' story, but also inspiring those current and future generations to understand and uphold the government's role in providing social justice and economic security for all. So we are so thrilled to be partnering in this award to help carry that work forward. I did, in my channeling Frances Perkins, want to answer a question that has been my #1 top question in 2025, and that is, what would Frances be saying right now or doing right now? Looking at the world around us, lots of people think that I have this ability to really channel Frances Perkins and answer that authentically. I do have thoughts as Amanda Hatch. If you want to discuss it after, off mic, over a glass of wine, just find me. But I did want to share what I know Frances Perkins would be thinking and doing because we have it in her own words. We know that she believed that the people are what matter to a government, that's a quote, and a government should aim to give all the people under its jurisdiction the best life possible. We also know from quotes, she had a lot of oral histories later in her life, we know that she recognized that things would change over time, for better, sometimes for worse, but she acknowledged throughout her career that she wouldn't get everything right, that the New Deal didn't get everything right, that change was inevitable and necessary. And nearer the end of her life, she also acknowledged that she would not be here forever to continue this work. She said, and this is another quote, "There is always a large horizon, much to be done. I am not going to be doing it. It is up to you to contribute some small part to a program of human betterment." And so that's what I think Frances Perkins would be doing on this stage right now, is also recognizing, honoring, and thanking that next generation who is contributing their part to the program of human betterment. Yeah. Okay.
We are so grateful to the Frances Perkins Center for teaming up with us to do this. And the other reason that it feels really significant, and I think right, and probably what Frances would want if we're channeling, right, to honor the next generation, is she was in her 20s when she got started building what we now know is the New Deal, right? So this isn't like we hope you show up later in life, next generation. Like, the work is to happen now, and that's why the folks that we are so proud to be honoring tonight are already doing the work and already leading the way, although I won't disclose their ages. So I am going to ask our honorees to start making their way up to the stage, because we're going to transition to that moment. But I'm also going to ask John Slattery and Ariella Jailal to join us too, because they are the Director of Membership and also our Director of Leadership Development here at the Academy. So that's your notice to come start making your way up. All right. So the three people that we are so honored to begin this award with, and begin because we anticipate this will be an annual award that we are excited to continue to give. We are recognizing three extraordinary alumni of the Academy's intern program, and three who are already shaping the future of social insurance with imagination, with integrity, and with heart. And those three remarkable people are Zane Snyder Cox, Taylor Carty, and Johntrell Bowles. And yes, this is a clapping moment. Each of them is already making waves in the policy world in their own powerful ways, and I've been really privileged to get to know each of them and to get to witness what they're already doing. So I'm going to talk a little bit about each of you and embarrass you thoroughly, but not too much, don't worry. And I'm excited to bring in the words of some Academy members who wanted to add their remarks into the mix. So Johntrell, over here at the end, wave a hand. Johntrell Bowles serves as a Health and Aging Policy Fellow at Columbia University, where he's been working on improving the well-being of older adults. He's already worked across the private sector, the public sector, the global sector, and is dedicated in his career to advancing public health. He was part of the 2024 intern class, and he also was a John Lewis Fellow. And I'm going to say a few words that our distinguished visiting fellow and an Academy member many of you know shared about Johntrell's leadership, and they come from Indy Dedagupta, who many people in this room know. Indy shares, Johntrell brings extraordinary personal experiences, commitment to leadership, and intellectual curiosity to the work to build social insurance that we need. He represents exactly the temperament, the passions, and the skills that we need more of in our world to bridge differences, to solve hard problems, and ultimately to ensure the health and economic security we all deserve. I look forward to voting for Johntrell at some point, not that long from now, I'm sure. Congratulations, Johntrell. Next, we are so thrilled to honor Taylor Carty, who many folks in this room know because she is a hell of a networker. Taylor is a 2024 David A. Winston Scholar. She holds a Master's of Public Health from the UCLA School of Public Health. She has witnessed the power of social insurance programs firsthand through her work at Cottage Rehabilitation Hospital, through the ABLE Resource Center, and also through her own lived experience. Taylor was a member also of the Academy's 2024 summer intern class, where she worked at the Urban Institute, and she's now pursuing a master's degree in public policy at the University of Cambridge. So she came in from London for this, which we are so honored that she did. And she is also, fun fact, leading an amazing project to transform Venice Hope Park in Los Angeles into the community's first ever accessible and sensory-friendly playground. So I asked Larry Atkins to share a few words about Taylor because he actually hosted her last summer when she was an intern. And he said that would be really hard for him because he needed to send me a whole book. I said, Larry, we only have time for a few sentences, so Taylor, follow up with Larry for the book. And he says, Taylor is a delightful, outgoing person with a steely determination she disguises well and a solid understanding of healthcare policy and programs. She's approached each barrier that's been thrown in her way with a strategy to overcome it, and in doing so, she clears a path for others every single time. With this award, the Academy recognizes that Taylor has already distinguished herself, yet has so much more still to contribute in creating our future in social insurance policy, and I couldn't agree more. Congratulations, Taylor. And our third Frances Perkins Next Generation Award tonight, we are so honored to give to Zane Snyder Cox. Yes, applause is correct. Yes, this is good. Zane is completing his bachelor's degree at the George Washington University, and his commitment to social insurance stems from a desire to build systems that support people across transitions in life with dignity. He served as the Merton Bernstein intern on social insurance this past summer, the 2025 intern class, and he worked with Mats Blancato and Associates and also the Academy. We got to share him to do a lot of work on the Elder Justice Coalition and Social Security as well. He's already begun to make his mark as a member of the Academy team since he stayed on with us, where he is leading an initiative to uplift young people's voices in shaping the future of social insurance. And you can actually find the inaugural program from that series on the Academy's website. Now, Bob Blancato had a few words about Zane, which I'm going to share. Don't worry, they're totally G-rated. I commend Zane Snyder Cox for being named the inaugural class for the Frances Perkins Next Generation Award. In the short time I've known and worked with Zane, Bob says, he impresses in so many ways. He blends intellect with commitment and compassion, and like Frances Perkins, he will be a trailblazer. What a great future lies ahead for Zane and all those whose lives he makes better. I could not agree more. Congratulations, Zane. So let's give another round of applause to these amazing next generation leaders. And just to say, knowing each of you personally, I really feel that you remind each of us that the next generation of leaders is not waiting in the wings. You're already here, and thank God we need you. Please join me in congratulating the inaugural class. Thank you. So stay up here, we're gonna do This is a moment for a photo op. Do pardon us. All right, so while we do a quick stage transition, you know who you are if you need to start coming up to the front for the next portion. So we're doing a little segue from one generation to the next, right? So that's what we're doing. You're seeing how we've structured this evening. And it feels meaningful to do that because that really is how social insurance is set up, but it's also how the work works, right? One generation really hands the baton to the next, and each generation lifts the next. So tonight, now this is the moment for celebrating two leaders who are not at the beginning of their careers. We are celebrating really a lifetime of public service that two leaders have really shown can strengthen the foundation for all of us. And a little brief moment about the Ball Award, because we actually have a number of Ball Award winners in the room, so we need to do our due to Robert Ball. The Robert Ball Award, for anyone who's new to the Academy or new to these events, it's the Academy's highest honor given, and it's named for truly a giant in social insurance whose life's work embodied the conviction that our social insurance system must always evolve to meet the needs of our people while staying true to its founding spirit of interdependence and compassion. And so over the years, this award has recognized many of the most influential architects and shapers of America's social insurance system. And tonight, we have two more incredibly distinguished names to add to that list, and they are Mike Astrue and Martin O'Malley, both former commissioners of the Social Security Administration, whom I've had the privilege of getting to work with at different points in my career. Fun fact, actually, the person who introduced me to Commissioner O'Malley, or to Commissioner Astrue, is here. One of my first bosses in legal aid when I was baby Rebecca, just starting to do this work. So shout out, John Stein, where are you? Raise a hand. Community Legal Services. So glad to have you here, John. So with this being the 90th anniversary of Social Security, the Academy Board found it fitting to honor a bipartisan duo of Social Security leaders, especially together. And this is actually kind of a joint Ball Award presentation because the two of them have spent so much of this year together, working collaboratively on a bipartisan basis to speak out on behalf of the program and the agency in really challenging times. So please join me in welcoming our 2025 Ball awardees, Mike Astrue and Martin O'Malley, to the stage, along with Marty Ford and Nancy Altman, who are gonna join us. Yes? Good. Come sit. Anywhere. Come sit. Thank you, Governor. And before we get started, we're going to hear a short video message that I did give Jason Fichtner permission to record because he wasn't able to join us tonight, but he wanted to join us in celebrating Commissioner Astrue because he was unable to be with us tonight. So we're going to let Jason do a little bit of talking before we get into it.
Good evening. I'm Jason Fichtner, an Academy board member, at least until the end of the year, unless Rebecca comes up with another creative way to keep me on the board. While many of you may know Mike Astrue as Commissioner of Social Security, let me give you a brief background on his career prior to becoming Commissioner. In 1978 and 1979, Mike worked for Senator Richard Schweiker and the National Council of Senior Citizens. And then Schweiker announced his retirement and NSSC ran out of general grant money. But Mike's career of public service was far from finished. In 1985 and 1986, he was the acting Deputy Assistant Secretary for Human Services Legislation at HHS and oversaw Social Security, AFDC, and social services legislation. In the second month on the job, he had to file the paperwork for his father's disability claim, who was 52 at the time and suffered from the same rare brain cancer that hit Senators Kennedy and McCain. It was during that time he first started thinking about what would eventually become the Compassionate Allowances Program when he was Commissioner of SSA. Also beginning in 1986 and through 1988, Mike served as counsel to SSA Commissioner Dorcas Hardy. And let me just say that Dorcas Hardy, well, she was a force of nature. Mike was the agency spokesperson on the elimination of the earnings test and the person who persuaded OMB to let SSA start sending out the annual earnings statement. For a short period of time in 1988 and 1989, Mike served as associate counsel to the president, which included time as the White House ethics officer, a job I'm sure he's glad he does not have today. Mike returned to HHS in 1989 through 1992, serving as general counsel overseeing Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, AFDC, and other areas. Of note, he personally tried and won the first HIV discrimination case and successfully argued the appeal of the first patient dumping enforcement case. With David McIntosh, he co-authored the first FDA accelerated drug approval regulations, essentially applying the AIDS drug framework of the late 1980s to all life-threatening diseases for which there is no approved treatments, which by now has benefited tens of millions of people. The appointment at HHS came with a concurrent appointment to the independent board that issued the first Americans with Disability Act regulations. Mike had a career in the private sector as well, but never left behind the calling to help improve the lives of millions. He moved the stock of the company from $3.85 a share to $37 a share in just over 2 years. That's remarkable. His reward? He lost his job in a hostile takeover. Mike became the 15th Commissioner of Social Security in 2007, serving until 2013 under Presidents George W. Bush and Barack Obama. His number one accomplishment, for which he is most proud, bringing me on board as his deputy. He once told me he hated yes people, so I learned quickly that if he said no, I said no too. In all seriousness though, Mike was a tough boss, but also gave me the space and respect to say my piece when needed. As commissioner, he oversaw the rapid implementation of compassionate allowances for people with rare fatal diseases. By creating a list of diseases that are, by definition, disabling at diagnosis, and for which there is no chance of improvement, cases that often took years were decided in about 7 days. And by his departure in 2013, about 6% of disability cases were being handled in this expedited fashion. Much of the public attention during his 6-year term was focused on the hearings backlog he inherited. And I'm not joking when I say that members of the House Ways and Means Committee were yelling at him in a very personal terms in a hearing on his 3rd day on the job. Well, Mike drove down the backlog. He expedited the process by about 200 days, and he did it the old-fashioned way, by simplifying regulations and procedures, expanding staff and offices where necessary. Mike had a constant mission to reduce the backlog as much as was feasibly possible. I said Mike was a tough boss, but he was a very hands-on and personable boss about many things as well. He was the first commissioner to use email. He was the first commissioner to eat every day in the cafeteria. Mike, remember Taco Tuesdays? Those are my favorite. And he ended up writing the scripts for Patty Duke's public service ads because he couldn't find anyone internally who was comfortable writing humor for an Academy Award winner. Yes, it's true. Mike does have a sense of humor. If you want to see that humor in action, just Google any of the 4 times he appeared on the Today Show talking about Baby Name Day, which is a clever way we use to educate people about our Medicare prescription supplement information. What you may not know about Mike, when he was sworn in as commissioner, he didn't know then he was fighting 2 autoimmune diseases. But in 2011, he was diagnosed with a severe and unusual form of rheumatoid arthritis. The first line of therapy for him and most patients is off-patent chemo drugs, and they were difficult for him to manage. For the remainder of his time, he took his medication on Friday night, recuperating over the weekend, and came back to work hard every Monday morning. And that's the boss and the friend that I've known for almost 20 years, a hardworking, tireless, dedicated public servant whose service has benefited the lives of millions. Mike, congratulations on being awarded the Robert M. Ball Award. Thank you for your service and personally for mentorship and the friendship you've shown me. And congratulations to Commissioner O'Malley as well. Thank you.
I will. Mics are on. Hand mic, yes? You guys can hear me. Excellent. We made a successful mic transition. Guys, I think we're going to make it. The one way to get assurances that Jason is going to be well behaved at an event and also to limit his speaking is to have him pre-record. It worked out well. Thank you, Jason, where you are tonight. I am really, really, really thrilled to have the final portion of tonight's program really be a little bit more of a conversation. And in part because I wanted to make sure that we were going to get my favorite bipartisan odd couple of 2025 together in conversation on this stage and not just separately talking. But before we let them say anything, and I'm sure there will be no shortage of challenges in getting you guys to be brief because we got a couple of Irish guys on this stage, and that's what Commissioner Astrue has reminded me of before we've started the program tonight. We are going to let a couple of other people talk about you first, and they happen to be 2 former Ball Award winners. And Marty Ford, I'm going to start with you in part because we didn't get you on this stage last year. You actually missed your own Ball Award, and so part of my agenda tonight is actually getting you over onto this overdue stage. So can we just do a quick round of applause that Marty didn't get to hear last year? So, Marty, you have had the privilege of working alongside Commissioner Astrue for a long time, including when I was that baby legal aid lawyer that John Stein started bringing to Washington. So tell us a little bit about Commissioner Astrue's impact and legacy.
Okay, thank you. Has my voice picked up? Okay. I'm probably going to say a lot of what Jason said, but from the perspective of people with disabilities. When Michael Astrue was appointed commissioner, I was part of an informal group of legal advocates. We didn't have a name even. Rebecca came into that group. John Stein was already there. And we represented some national organizations as well as individuals who represented individual clients. And we were very concerned about some very serious service and policy implementation issues in the agency that affected beneficiaries and claimants regarding their benefits and statutory rights that were not being implemented properly. So we were deeply interested in his appointment as commissioner and anxious to know the priority he would set on people with disabilities and the direction in which he would take the agency. We found Commissioner Astrue to be very open to meeting with us when requested. And so we requested to meet with him several times a year for the entire 6 years he was there. We took advantage of that, and I think we made a good working partnership. He took our concerns very seriously and searched for solutions. We worked on behalf of claimants and beneficiaries, and we looked for solutions that worked for them as well as administratively, because sometimes the issue is just lack of communication. We had open, constructive conversations that revealed the pros and cons, both for the administration as well as for people with disabilities. And that led us towards the solutions that we needed. Now, we did not always agree. And in fact, I remember some tough times during our first meeting. But the commissioner would be honest with us and let us know what his limits were. I echo the importance that Jason put on the Commissioner Astrue's attacking the very long-standing backlog of disability applications and how long it took for people to get their benefits that they were entitled to. I was a part of many of the hearings on the Hill about that. It was critically important to Congress as well as to people with disabilities and as well as to Commissioner Astrue. And he deserves a lot of credit for bringing that significantly down, I think to under a year. And it had been much, much longer. I think that the Compassionate Allowance Program was a real example of the creativity that Commissioner Astrue brought to his job and to looking at problems, because this addressed both the administrative concerns about wasting time on cases that did not need to have so much time, put to a case, as well as taking into account what the impact was on the individual and their family to spend so much time on a case where the answer should be very cut and dried. Those situations, for example, certain cancers or certain diseases like ALS, where it was pretty clear that the individual had a very serious disability and was never going to recover. And he was able to devise a program where eventually the decisions could be made within a few days rather than months or perhaps over a year. So I found that, I think we all found that to be a very creative way of addressing both administrative issues and disability issues at the same time. In addition, Commissioner Astrue looked at the big picture. You know, what was happening with all the information systems, the data systems, and the outdated systems that existed at Social Security, and he really went after that. And also the fact that there were no backup data systems at that time. And so he took that in hand too, and that affected not just the disability community, but the entire Social Security system. So in short, I just want to point out his open door policy, his attention and interest in people with disabilities and their needs in the system throughout his 6-year term, his open door, and the improvements to the overall information systems which impact the entirety of the Social Security programs. I can't possibly begin to mention everything that he did and how successful so many of those things were, but I do want to congratulate you, Commissioner Astrue, on this award, because I think it's very well deserved.
Thank you so much, Marty. Thank you. So Nancy Altman, you need really no introduction to this community, and the time that you won the Ball Award was a little bit earlier than when Marty did, but it's really meaningful to have two powerhouse women up here who I really consider mentors and people who have inspired me and my work. So thank you for being here tonight as well. So you have been such a powerhouse advocate for Social Security, really your entire career, and you've also seen Commissioner O'Malley and Governor O'Malley and many other titles that Martin O'Malley has had up close in his work. So I'm going to give you next a chance to talk a little bit about what stands up to you about Commissioner O'Malley's approach and vision.
Well, I've got to say that I really feel the same way Larry Atkins does. I need a book. I mean, you would be here a very long time, and there will be a lot of good dessert, but I will try to keep it shorter than that. I first worked with the commissioner when he was running for president, and he had the wonderful sense that he wanted to run on expanding Social Security. So I worked with him to develop a really strong proposal. I was so delighted. I think the country was so well served by President Biden having the wisdom to nominate the commissioner, Martin, to be the commissioner, and it showed his ability that he got overwhelming bipartisan support at a time when we are not at a very bipartisan point in this country's history. He was tireless. It is so easy for any of us who've worked within the executive branch, how easy it is to get trapped in meetings, that you're always dealing internally. I remember working on the Hill and always being frustrated because what we needed from the executive branch came the day after the vote, you know. And then when I got into the executive branch, I saw exactly how that happened. But that did not happen with Commissioner O'Malley. He was very good at meeting regularly, his security stat meetings within the agency, but he was amazing at keeping touch. I don't know that you ever slept. I mean, it was really keeping touch with everyone. In fact, I was really struck that a retired head of AFGE Local Council of 220, Vitold, who's here tonight, and I was just talking to him about this, told me that he worked at Social Security for 50 years. He was president of AFGE Council 220, I think, for like 35 of those years. He was now retired. He left in 2018. He told me that he had more communication, more good conversations, more take-up on what needed to be done in the 11 months that Martin O'Malley was commissioner than any other commissioner in his 50 years of service. I think that really says it all. And he did so much that was beneath the surface except for those who were really affected. There was a field office, there was only one field office in San Juan, Puerto Rico. And for those who are not familiar with the island, there's not much public transportation without that field office, and it closed. And it closed for legitimate reasons, and it closed before Martin became commissioner. But it was devastating for those on the island. They could not get service. We brought the issue to Martin's attention, and usually it takes, forever, and especially Puerto Rico. He cut through all the bureaucracy. I believe he holds the record for getting an office reopened in record time. It was really just astounding what he accomplished. And it was only 11 months. I mean, I hate to say it, I feel like Trump, I can't believe it's only been 1 year, or it hasn't even been 1 year. But that's kind of the way I feel in a sort of flip way, a converse way, that so much was accomplished in such a short time. And it's really just unfortunate that he only did have such a short time. Both Mike Astrue and Martin O'Malley, on their own, are just dynamos, but together they are really just an amazing duo. I see much more closely what Martin does. He is, again, tireless, running around the country nonstop, talking to people, making the issue known, getting people. This is a very bipartisan issue, and he's able to approach people across the ideological spectrum. And it is so good. I think it is so fitting that this year's Bob Ball Award, I was very close to Bob Ball. He was a mentor of mine, and I'm confident he's smiling down right now. Very pleased that he was the longest serving commissioner, so he still holds that over the two of you. But he would still be very pleased with how you served the nation.
Thank you so much, Nancy. So, commissioners, this is the part where I'm going to let you guys speak. We've made it. So, Commissioner O'Malley, I want to throw a question to you first, because it's really meaningful to me, and I think it's also meaningful to you tonight, that Frances Perkins is part of who we're honoring as well. And so one of the things that you and I have had a lot of conversations about is the spiritual foundation of the New Deal, where it all came from. And I think you and I actually share a favorite quote of Frances Perkins's. And so I'd love to give you a chance to talk a little bit about what that spirit is and how it still has the opportunity to guide us in these times.
And you're not going to give us the quote first?
I'm going to make you say it.
Well, let me, we had a lot of figures who I think are present in a different way. We had their images in the security stat room where we would gather. You know, a football game would be pretty miserable if you didn't call huddles between plays and figure out how to move the ball down the field, whether it was on the pass relevant work rule or whether it was on the public assistance housing rule or just in terms of how we improve the process. You know, there was so much we needed to squeeze out of the process, right, Mike? It was like a cornucopia of opportunities to have people serve better. And so we had Frederick Douglass at the back of the room saying, we are one, our cause is one, we must help each other if we are to succeed. We had Franklin Delano Roosevelt looking over the shoulder of every person that was leading one of those 8 security stat meetings, saying that our first principle is the security of the men, women, and children of the nation. And we also had Abraham Lincoln saying, of the people, by the people, for the people. But we also had Frances Perkins saying, I came to Washington to serve God, FDR, and the hardworking, plain-spoken men and women of this country. So I recently had the opportunity at the Roosevelt Institute to actually see the room where Frances Perkins was interviewed by Franklin Roosevelt. And it was the room where it happened. And I had occasion to be there alone because my cell phone died. And so I had to plug it in up there and go and retrieve it afterwards. But I just thought about these men and women coming together and just putting America on such a better course. And just, I thought about the millions of people that pebble being rolled down the hill as it continued to gain momentum, and just so many people, lifelines that were lifted out of poverty. And that's the agency I had the honor to be asked to come and lead, with Nancy training me up on the way in, with, we told, and Jessica LaPointe from AFGE. I wasn't allowed back in those days to meet with people inside the agency until confirmation. Apparently, that's another rule that's been changed. And so many people I had the honor to serve with on that 9th floor, Carolyn Colvin and Kathleen Romig and the plaintiffs' bar, the people that represent the claimants. We met with them every month. Andy Youngman's here and Andrew Woods. I mean, I feel so blessed to have been able to serve there. And it's a great, humbling honor to be able to accept this award and to be able to accept it with Mike Astrue, whose legacy continued to live on. And I often heard about the things Mike Astrue had done to make things better. We all like to believe, as we cling to our public institutions through this time of delusion, that we build upon what others have accomplished. We don't tear it down. We don't believe that demolition is a beautiful sound that means money. We believe in building on other things. And I suppose, watching those men and women with their staffing reduced to a 50-year low and their workload at an all-time high because of baby boomers, can I say like us? Baby boomers like us. To watch them sprint up that downward moving escalator of workload and turn so many things around, like that initial disability, growing backlog for 10 years and the wait time on the 800 number. So in conclusion, I came to understand very, very early at the agency, more deeply than even Barbara Mikulski had told me before I walked into the agency, that the greatest power of that agency is the heart and the commitment of the men and women who work there and continue to work there with a patriotic duty. And that duty comes from the mission they share. It's become kind of politically fashionable to be cruel, to say that empathy is the greatest weakness in the Western mind. But these men and women, and all of you, believe differently. You believe, in fact, that we're all in this together and that we have to help each other if we're going to succeed. And so, we choose in this ongoing creative mystery called the United States, we choose to heal the sick, to feed the hungry, to care for widows and orphans, those in the dawn of life and those in the dusk of life. Every soul. Every soul. And in this world, we like to believe everything we build is temporary, but castles have been sacked in war and chieftains scattered far. No republics ever survived without going through periods of this. But there are 3 things that do not die. One of them is hope, another is faith, and the third one is love. And that's what this agency and this mission has more deeply than any other group of people in your federal government.
Amanda, how did he do it channeling Frances Perkins? She's giving you an A, Commissioner. Some words that get me through a lot of days I actually have on my corkboard in my office, and they were ones that Commissioner O'Malley shared with me, and you're going to have to remind me where they came from, because now I'm attributing them to you, and I don't think that's right, but you were the one who shared them with me, and that was, in times like these, we pray, we act, and we wait patiently on God's time. So thank you, Commissioner.
It was Bonhoeffer.
So Commissioner Astrue, we're not going to make you channel Frances Perkins unless you feel inspired, in which case you are a poet. You might be able to do it. But we've heard a lot tonight about your work to bring down disability backlogs, to create the Compassionate Allowances program, to do so much else that people might not have known about your bio. So thank you to Jason for sharing a lot of that history. What are you proudest of from your time of commissioner, from your time as commissioner, and in these times that do feel so polarized and so politicized, what gives you hope about
Social Security being something that can still bring us together, as evidenced by the two of you working together so much.
Well, I think, can I just talk? Or?
Yeah,
Okay.
right into it, right into it,
Okay.
Mike.
This wouldn't be an Academy event if we didn't have Commissioner O'Malley teaching Commissioner Astrue how to use the microphone.
Speak through it.
Okay, that's right. When I first got to the agency, I did a number of things that were a little bit different from before, and I think those things were important because they were signs of respect for the employees and taking joy in public service. And eating in the cafeteria was one. I didn't really think it was a big deal. The 9th floor kind of flipped out when I decided to do that, but it was so popular that we started getting calls from other buildings. Will the commissioner come over and eat in our cafeteria? I also took a lesson from my friend Charlie Baker, who was not yet governor of Massachusetts and not yet head of the NCAA, who had done a turnaround. And when I was doing my first turnaround, said to him, "What do you recommend?" And he said, I do a weekly message to employees, and I don't let other people write it for me. I speak in my own voice. And that's essentially what I tried actually to keep to the week. When I was in the corporate side, I could do it by the week. Life was so chaotic, I couldn't keep to a weekly schedule. But on a regular basis, I wrote in my own words, and I got a lot of advice. No, Commissioner, you can't say that. This is the way we say this, and that kind of thing. And I think at the end of the day, people valued the fact that I would try to talk to them about what I really thought and what I really meant, and that it was a sign of respect. And so those things are important. I think the other thing that I take some pride in, I was under enormous pressure with the backlog. I showed up just as the media and the Congress decided it was a crisis, and they were not very easy on me. And a lot of members of Congress would say to me, "I don't want you spending any time or money on anything other than backlog reduction." And I found polite ways to ignore such members of Congress because the agency had a lot of other issues. We had one machine from 1962 printing every Social Security card, and it was brought in from Germany, and we had elderly consultants named Gunther and Hans who would help us when it broke down. And I remember going in with my deputy for systems and just like starting to fall apart. And I said, okay, we're replacing this right now, and we're getting a backup too. So we don't, we can let Hans and Franz go. And I think trying to make sure that you did things the right way, even when you're under a lot of pressure to not do things the right way. And I think one of the things that was hardest, that I actually do take a lot of pride in, is I got into the backlog reduction, and then I found out that ODAR had been cooking the books, that the numbers had been so bad that they started moving to doing the newest cases first and just shunting a lot of cases aside, because that made the numbers that Congress was looking at better. And we undid that, and that made it look like we had an enormous bulge in the first couple months I was on the job. And that was a big risk, but doing things the honest and the right way is important, and we got through that. And because of that, when I started, we had, I think I've got these numbers right, we had 140,000 cases that had been waiting more than 1,000 days. We had cases that had been waiting 4 years for a hearing. And I was worried when we undid that rule that there'd be resistance in ODAR. And God bless them, every single judge was just thrilled. They were embarrassed by what the agency had done. And we worked through it and took it down. We put the oldest cases first and took them down month by month, got them down. And I think by the time we left, we didn't have any cases that had been waiting even 2 years. And so, stepping up to do the right things, even when that you may get killed for it, I mean, I think that's what I take a lot of pride in. I mean, I take a lot of pride in compassionate allowance. I think in terms of impact, that was the most important thing that I did. But for me, that was a pretty simple, straightforward, and necessary thing to do. I think some of the other things that were riskier, I think now in hindsight, I probably take a little bit more pride in those than some of the things that people remember.
And, you know, it's easy to hear numbers like that and to have it be, you know, bureaucratic sounding, right? But the people behind the disability backlog, right? It's people dying, waiting for these benefits that are so incredibly important. So there's countless people who, without question, because of both of your work, were able to live to see getting benefits who otherwise would not be because of those backlogs. Just incredibly important. Thank you, Commissioner. We are going to officially present these guys their awards. So Nancy, I'm going to ask for your help to bring them over because you're closest to them, so if you don't mind. So come bring them over. They're on the table next to you. I'm going to let you do one, and I'm going to let Marty do the other. But as we do this, I need to say this is kind of a fun thing we're doing this year. To make this a little extra special, we happened to find out that one of our members of the Academy family, and a longtime Academy member, happens to have a special talent for making glass art. And so he made the Ball Awards this year, and that person is Jack Smulligan. So round of applause to Jack. And we thought it was fitting that maybe the red one went to you, Commissioner Astrue, and the blue one went to Commissioner O'Malley. So we tried. He got the red one, and then the blue one went over there. We thought that was on brand. And together they are red, white, and blue, Commissioner O'Malley points out. So look at that. So we're going to do a quick photo op for this. Thank you, Jack, wherever you are. So another round of applause for this year's Ball Award winners. Oh.
Commissioner Astrue and I have one more important point of privilege.
Why
Mike,
would I think you
go
were
first.
done talking? No.
Go ahead.
But we won't use our full 45 minutes.
You going first?
No, you go first.
I really want to thank my wife, Katie O'Malley. She supported me in this. I dropped everything else we were doing, and I threw myself into what you know is an exacting confirmation process, and she was with my side every step of the way. So, Katie, thank you for letting me do this work.
And I want to say essentially the same. My bride and I have been a team since we were 18. You know, we put each other through professional school, and she made a lot of sacrifices so that I could do the public service. I mean, we still, you know, our house is still in Boston. You know, we've come down to this area 3 times to do public service, and that's not easy. It involves a lot of sacrifice, so I'm grateful as well.
I love that. And I love that these are 2 guys who refer to their wives as their brides. It touches my heart, and it's wonderful to get to meet both of those brides tonight. And you've inspired Phil, who started calling me that, so now it's your fault that he does that. So another round of applause for this year's Ball Award winners.
Martin, thanks for doing that.
Thank you. Honored to be with you.
So you may have noticed that there is champagne being circulated. That is, again, my husband Phil's fault. However, oh, thank you, yes.
Do we stay up here or do we go back to our lives for this?
Stay up here because we're going to do a toast.
Okay.
So at this point, I'm going to welcome all the Academy board members who are here to come join us on stage. We're going to give you guys a job, which is to help me lead a toast to conclude tonight's program. So you know who you are, and I've seen some of you, but not all of you. So you're in trouble if you don't come up right now and I find out. Thank you, Paul. Here, come on over here. Go find a spot, Marna. got room on this stage. There we go. Deb knows how to find a spot. Tracy, wonderful. All right, so do we have John? Did John Slattery make it back up? You are there. Okay, good. All right, excellent. All right, so John Slattery, Aparna Mathur, Tracy Groniger, Deb Whitman, there's Deb, and Paul Vanderwater joining me again. So wanted to be joined as we do just a closing toast to honor this evening and to honor all of you all. And so as we raise our glasses, just a big thank you to all of you for your dedication, your partnership, and your faith in this work. So here's to Frances Perkins, whose courage and imagination birthed a vision that still guides us. Here's to Bob Ball, who gave that vision form and strength across generations, including through the Academy. Here's to Commissioner Astrue and Commissioner O'Malley for reminding us that the mission we share transcends party and politics at its best when we can. And here's to the next generation of leaders who are already shaping the future. And here's to all of you, the stewards, the believers, and the builders of social insurance. Please join us in that toast. I lost my glass. I'll catch up after. Everyone, we're going to keep the room until 9:30 tonight, so keep enjoying and go spend some more time hanging out with each other. Thanks, everyone.